Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you guys. So we are still climbing here at the beginning of Season 8. It is currently still the day that I am recording this. We actually just got our new update. I touched on this briefly in the last video, but yeah, at the time I'm recording this, it's just a couple of hours after we got the new update, so that's definitely pretty rad. The casual mode has been added. I'm definitely still busy in ranked, but I definitely might dip into there for some more casual decks a little bit later in the season. I guess I guess by that point I'll be Diamond 1, so it really won't matter either way. Whatever, we'll figure it out. In either case, we are definitely glad to see these updates to the game, as well as all the stuff that got data mined, including some new archetypes that seem pretty cool and or promising, including more additions to the Despia theme. So definitely going to be looking forward to those whenever they end up dropping, which I don't think will probably be for a little while here, but we'll see. Who knows? In any case, we are still chugging along with our adventure decks, Prank-Kids being one of the more prominent ones among the ones I've been playing. Just when I'm like, you know, because I kind of have fun with decks like Tri-Brigade Zodiac or something I don't play as often with like Adventure Virtual World. But then when it's like, okay, we've gone back and forth on the ladder a bit. Now let's let's do something a little more serious, like some more serious climbing with Adventure Prank-Kids. This has definitely been my go-to deck, like I mentioned at the beginning of the season, where if I want to make progress, I just turn to Adventure Prank-Kids because the consistency and just general power of the deck can definitely not be understated enough, or overstated enough rather. You know, it's just such a solid deck, very consistent with its one card combos and being able to set up the adventure engine, of course, on top of that. It's funny, I've actually not been seeing as many other Adventure Prank-Kids decks as I expected to. I kind of thought it was going to be just an overwhelming... I was a little afraid, honestly, that it might be a little bit like Sword Soul Tenyi before, but I should have realized, actually, with how diverse the meta is, that we're still going to see quite a bit of diversity of decks. This definitely does feel closer to, like, how the meta felt like when Master Duel first came out, when, like, yeah, Tri-Brigade Zodiac was the best deck, but there were still a ton of other decks that we're seeing play. I kind of feel like we're in a similar spot right now, where, yes, Adventure Prank-Kids is... You know, it's pretty much, I don't know about assuredly, but it's, in my opinion, it's more or less assuredly the best deck right now in this current meta. But we're still seeing a lot of other decks out there, because those decks are still very viable and can definitely still put up a good fight against Adventure Prank-Kids. Again, it's kind of like everyone's kind of doing unfair things right now, so it's kind of balanced in a little bit of a weird way like that. But I guess such is the nature of Adventure being, you know, the driving force of the current meta. Let's see, so yeah, last time we made the adjustment of taking out the Weather Washer for a Totally Awesome. These are now the first games with that change made moving forward. I didn't summon Totally Awesome during any of these games, but it's funny, there was actually one game where I was like, Weather Washer might not actually be bad here, but of course I might only be thinking about that now. More because I took Weather Washer out, but who knows, whatever. In any case, I'm still liking the Totally Awesome over the Weather Washer slot, so... Other than that, no other changes to the build at this point. Not that I am closed off to suggestions, as you all know. If you want to drop some suggestions for the build and or, you know, the gameplay that you see coming up, definitely feel free to do so in the comments. I'm always looking for your guys' feedback. It has definitely helped me grow as a player, and I think all of us in turn... You know, I've said this before, I've touched on this before in videos, but I really like the community aspect that we've got going here, because I definitely don't want to be, like, the sole kind of, like, I don't know, I don't really see myself as, like, an instructor or a teacher here necessarily. I know I do, like, Master Duel lessons or whatever, but that's kind of just more for the video title. No, I definitely see this as more of, like, a community growth kind of thing, like, not just, like, me helping you guys helping me, but also you guys helping each other by leaving comments like that is definitely very, very helpful. And I think really cool too that we're all able to help each other like grow as players. I think that's really, I'm just glad we're doing something productive here. That was kind of my end goal, was to at least do something at least somewhat productive with the channel here, and I definitely feel like we are accomplishing that. So I just want to take a moment to thank you all who are making those comments in the video there, or below the video, you know what I mean. In any case here, yeah, let's go ahead and, as always, break down the list card by card. I'm definitely going to take a sip of water before I do that. It's definitely another one of those days where I've been recording a fair bit, so talking a fair bit, so Voice gets a little hoarse sometimes. But anyway, we are playing 1 Effect Veiler, 2 Prank-Kids Fansies, 3 Maxx, 3 Prank-Kids Dropsies, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 Prank-Kids Lampsies, 2 Water Enchantress of the Temple, 1 Destiny Hero Celestial, 2 Prank-Kids Rocksies, 1 Destiny Hero Dasher, 1 Wandering Gryphon Rider, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Foolish Burial, 2 Fusion Destiny, 2 Rite of Aramesir, 1 Dracoback the Rideable Dragon, 3 Prank-Kids Place, 1 Prank-Kids Pranks, 1 Fateful Adventure, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Prank-Kids Pandemonium, 2 Crossout Designator, and 2 Infinite Impermanence. Extra deck here is going to contain 1 Prank-Kids Rocket Ride, 1 Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, 1 Prank-Kids Battle Butler, 1 Totally Awesome, 2 Link Spider, 2 Prank-Kids Meow Meow Moo, 2 Prank-Kids Dodo Doodle Doo, 1 Prank-Kids Bow Wow Bark, 1 Predaplant Vert Anaconda, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Prank-Kids Rip Roaring Roaster, and then finally 1 Access Code Talker. Now that we have covered the build itself, let's go ahead and take a look at those games. Alright, so this first game is going to be against @Ignister. And this was actually a pretty intense, I don't know, intense. It was relatively intense back and forth here. It was a nice back and forth, we'll say that. The more I play against @Ignister, the more I want to play the deck, because I feel like I almost know the deck well enough just playing against it to play it at this point. Anyway, opponent's going to take the first turn here. They're going to lead with Achichi @Ignister, which is the one that searches a monster. All the @Ignisters do some kind of search effect with their normal or specialed. Now, you might see like a normal summon for a search effect, and generally it's not bad to ash that, but as always, knowing your opponent's choke points is incredibly important, and it's definitely going to be the case here against @Ignister, because I know their choke point is actually going to be the Dark Infant, or I think that's what it's called, Dark Infant @Ignister, from the Link one, basically from the extra deck that searches the field spell. That's what's really going to be important to negate, because that field spell is going to let them pretty much do whatever they want. Yeah, the Dark Infant here, so we're definitely going to ash this when they attempt to add the field spell. The field spell, for those who don't know, if they don't have any monsters in their main zone, they can special an @Ignister monster, and that's not once per turn, it's just like if they have no monsters in their main zone. I don't think it's once per turn anyway, but either way, definitely don't want them to summon that. Also going to summon Wandering Gryphon Rider. I should have done it during their end phase, not during the end of their main phase 1. Okay, so I'm looking at my hand here, I see the Dropsies and the Fateful Adventure, so I definitely want to set up the Omni Negate with the Fateful Adventure first. So since I've already got the Gryphon Rider on board, I can just activate the Fateful Adventure and then use the effect to add the Water Enchantress, send the Water Enchantress. As always, this will not only attempt to set up an Omni Negate, but then we can potentially bait out an Ash to make sure that our Dropsies goes through. So, either way, that's what the Adventure line is trying to accomplish, is making sure that those disruption tools aren't going to mess you up too much. Opponent's actually got a Lancia though, so that's going to mess with it a little bit more, because that means that, I don't really have anything to stop that and the Maxx, obviously because I can't get the Gryphon Rider online, but the Lancia also will prevent, basically it kind of like prevented the Water Enchantress while still not being like an Ash, or in this case a C as an out, so I'm going to set up the Predaplant Vert Anaconda here, try to go for a DPE so I have got something, while still giving my opponent minimal draws. But my opponent's got a Forbidden Droplet here, so that's a pretty harsh vibe. Definitely don't like to see that. Oh, they had the animation. Okay. Yeah, okay, no, this game, because I was thinking to myself, like, wait, I didn't see that animation when I was actually playing this game, which was not that long ago, but no, this game was from, I think, just before the update dropped. Yeah, it was from just before the update dropped, so that is actually my first time seeing that droplet animation. That's really cool, actually. But what's not cool is the fact that our Vert Anaconda got dropleted, because now we kind of just have to pass to our opponent with nothing but a Vert Anaconda up and pray that they can't kill us. We do have a Nibiru in hand, so we can potentially stop that. So now what I'm thinking here is, okay, I've got Nibiru as my only disruption, and I know what the general shtick of @Ignister is going to be, right? They're going to try to go for their Link 6, the granddaddy arrival @Ignister, or the arrival Cybers @Ignister. And if that comes down, we're definitely in trouble. Now, it can be, actually, I don't think it can be attributed by Nibiru because it's unaffected, right? I don't think that works. I think it works for Kaiju, but not Nibiru. Either way, I'm going to want to use the Nibiru before that comes out. So They used the Picari to get the A Idol reborn here, and I really want a Nibiru after they use this A Idol reborn. I know that they probably added it as Nibiru protection, because I think I've seen them do this before. Yeah, this time I don't have anything to stop the Dark Infant. So, yeah, the AI land here is going to resolve, and then they're going to start summoning and adding, as a result, their Adagnister monsters. Yeah, I don't think it is once per turn, because then they go for the Splash Mage here, and now they're able to summon that Chi-Chi that they just added, which is, I think, oh no, they had they summoned the Bururu to send the Danmari. The Danmari being the negate that they can do if they have the Arrival Cybers Adagnister up, so definitely don't want that to happen. Now, I'm definitely a little bit less familiar with like the Synchro and the Xyz and stuff like this Wind Pegasus, but the Wind Pegasus doesn't do anything too bad. It's just going to blow up our back rows. Actually, it does come up a little bit later that the Wind Pegasus is, yeah, I'm trying to see the effect here. Yeah, this graveyard effect, that does end up coming up later, and I do kind of overlook it. Slight misplay, but that's going to obviously come up a little bit later, so... Yeah, at this point, I'm still waiting to Nibiru. Like, at this point, like I said, I'm still just waiting for this A Idol Reborn to come down. That's what I really want to happen, but if my opponent's going to have the setup to make a 6-material Adagnister here, a Rival Cybers Adagnister here, then I'm definitely going to want to stop that. Now here I see they're going for Update Jammer, and I recognize at this point they're going to try to get, they're going to try to go for an access code OTK. So I'm pretty sure they're just doing this to bait the Nibiru. But I am going to have to use it either way at this point, because obviously if I don't, then they're going to end on a 5300 access code that can attack directly. And sure enough, when they pop the Vert and then plan to end the main phase, I just have to drop Nibiru here. So, fortunately, the token is going to end up being really wimpy. It's really nice when playing against Link decks, because that usually tends to be the case. You can see, yeah, 2700 to 1600 token, definitely not too bad. But I wasn't able to force them to use the A Idol Reborn before they got Nibiru'd, so that's a little bit unfortunate. Like I said, they are still going to have like some backup plays, but it's just a Cyber Wicked, so it's actually not really that bad at all here. They're going to be able to get back the 8 all Reborn, but they can't use it again this turn, so they can't keep going. They're going to have to set and just pass here, and I do have a Dropsies left, so that, along with the other card I draw, is going to be enough to get us some action here. I'll try to use the Water Enchantress, but we get Ash, which again is actually kind of an ideal outcome, because now I can use this Dropsies without fear of getting Ash Blossomed. Of course, it would have been nice to have the Water Enchantress resolve to get the, rights, but yeah, you know what they say about beggars and choosers, right? So, alright, we're going to start the Prank-Kids line here. Just kind of doing like a kind of typical one Prank-Kid line, because there's not really a whole lot else you can do. You can't, like, as far as I know anyway, you can't, like, use one Prank-Kid solo like this to go into an OTK in a situation like this, so we're just gonna have to kind of get our typical Battle Butler setup, but not that that's even like a compromise or anything. Of course, the Battle Butler setup is what we usually end on and definitely like to end on. Yep, using the Doodle-Doodle-Doo at this point to return the Dropsies and the Pandemonium, because we've already got the pranks that we added. Again, this is really typical stuff that we're setting up here. Okay, so here we summon the Doodle-Doodle-Doo and then use Lampsies to get the Rocksies. I'm going to go to Battle Phase here, because I want to just, I thought about it for a second. I was like, I should probably go to Battle Phase now. That way I can get rid of all their stuff and not have to risk, like, my... Basically, I thought that if they were going to have an interruption, I'd rather do it at this point during this stage as opposed to trying to battle with, like, Bow Wow Bark out. I don't know. I don't really know. I gotta be honest with you. I don't really know why I went to Battle Phase in this part specifically. I'm just trying to guess at what I was thinking in the moment. But this is where I kind of make the slight misplay, as I did definitely forget about the Wind Pegasus, or not even forget about it. I just didn't really pay attention to the fact that Wind Pegasus Adagnister has this graveyard effect. So my opponent could have really screwed me over by putting back like the Doodle-Doodle-Doo or even the Rocksies here, but thankfully they put back the Nibiru that I haven't attacked with to avoid damage against the Cyber's Wicked. I definitely think they should have not put that back. Like, yeah, they would have taken 2200, but their Wicked would have survived. It's just 2200 damage. They've got 7500 life points. But yeah, putting back either of my Prank-Kids monsters keeps me from finishing my combo here. So again, it's actually kind of been the running theme of the last couple of videos. I feel like I keep saying like, hey, you should know like popular decks combo lines, like know their combo lines. If my opponent had really known what the combo line I was going for here was, which they should have, because it's a fairly standard one, then they would have known how to disrupt me and prevent me from having like a good, being able to, or prevent me from being able to go into Battle Butler, which I'm going to do right here. Like, yeah, because of them putting back Nibiru, yeah, now I'm able to go for this Pandemonium, send the 3 Prank-Kids in hand for Battle Butler, and then summon 3 Prank-Kids, and I'll have 5 monsters out in defense mode, plus a Battle Butler that's got 2 uses here. I guess that was a minor spoiler alert that I spoiled, like, what, 30 seconds before it happened. So, yeah, like I just mentioned, I'll use the Pandemonium to fuse all 3 in hand and keep the Fansies on board, because I know I have enough targets left on my deck to fill out my board here. And again, they're going to keep wheeling this AI Idol Reborn, but at this point, I'm totally fine with it. They don't really have... You see, they've only got 6 cards left in their extra deck, one of which is the Arrival Cybers at Ignister. So we've actually disrupted them enough that they're kind of running out of stuff to be able to even do at this point. Like, after we stop this next play here, I don't know if they're going to necessarily have another way to even be able to get to their Arrival Cybers at Ignister. So that's only 5 other cards in their extra deck that they can really feasibly go into here. Anyway, so yeah, they're going to use the AI land here to summon the Chi-Chi, and then activate Transcode to bring back Splash Mage. Now, again, this is something you definitely want to watch for against at Ignister in particular, when they can go into a Link 6, which they could definitely do right now if they wanted to, because they've got, yeah, obviously a Link 3, a Link 2, and a level 1. So I think you only need 3 monsters to go into the Arrival Cybers. Yeah, you only need 3, because I've faced off against 3,000 attack Arrival Cyberses before, so... yeah, definitely want to watch for that. Again, like I've been saying this whole video and saying in past videos, knowing your opponent's deck, knowing what they can go into, knowing their boss monsters. Yeah, definitely don't want to... Like, I mean, we've got the Battle Butler with 3,500 attack. A 3 material Arrival wouldn't be the worst thing to happen here, but if we can prevent it, there's kind of no reason not to, right? So as soon as this all comes down, I'm going to use Battle. Plus, because, you know, they might also... I don't know this extra deck 100%. I could have pulled up Master Duel meta and just looked, but they might have, like, another Link 4 or something that would be even scarier that I don't want them to go into, so... yeah, just going to use Battle Butler when the board state is kind of looking like that, and make sure that we're all good there. Now here they reveal, actually, what was that? I wanted to, oh yeah, the Fire Phoenix, which you don't see too often, but yeah, so like, especially like I said at this point, they've only got 6 cards left in their extra deck. I know one's this Fire Phoenix. I know one is the Arrival Cybers at Ignister. Again, if I really wanted to, I could have pulled up Master Duel meta even mid-game and just kind of looked at it. But I know my opponent's running out of... Not even if they're not running out of gas, like obviously they still have plays they can make. They're kind of running out of stuff to be able to, you know, end those plays on. So just kind of, we're almost kind of just grinding the opponent out of their resources at this point. This is really kind of the strength of what the Prank-Kids Disruption can do here. Something to add Chi-Chi, and then yeah, at this point they just conceded because I think they realize like I don't have anything left to go into. Like I can't answer this board, you know, of 5 big monsters in defense mode. You know, my opponent can still, I'm speaking from my opponent's perspective, you know, I can still board wipe at this point with another time with Battle Butler, and then I'm still at 8,000 life points, so, and of course with 4 Prank-Kids on board, that can't be destroyed by card effects, by the way. I'm definitely still going to be able to go into plays on the next turn, so I feel like this game right here is such a like prime example of a bunch of different things that I gush about when talking about this deck, one of which is, of course, just the sheer consistency and power of Adventure Prank-Kids. And then, of course, like a broken record at this point, but I'm only saying it so much because it's so important. Even if you're not playing a deck, know your opponent's deck. It's such an important skill. It's almost, not quite, obviously, but it's pretty damn close to as important as knowing your own deck. I think it's a lot more important than a lot of people realize. Because again, I just see the sentiment of like, sometimes of, oh, I don't, you know, pay attention to this deck because I don't play it. It's like, no, you should definitely, if a deck is relevant and you see it often enough, you should be paying attention to it. Even if it's something like Ad Ignister, which is fairly rogue tier, I still see it often enough that I want to know what it's able to do. So, all right, that's all I've got for that game. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So this game is going to be against Adventure Virtual World. It's just another nice little interactive game here. Had a lot of good games this climbing session lately. Okay, so we opened with the Ash, yep, Double Rocksies, Pranks, and Fusion Destiny here. So, I am able to go into a combo line thanks to the Rocksies, and I'll have to banish the other Rocksies, but that's fine. Obviously going to Ash the Maxx here, because I don't want to give my opponent a ton of draws for no reason at all. And yeah, I'm just going to kind of treat this, even though I opened 2 Prank-Kids, it's 2 of the same Prank-Kids, so that's not going to be like the same as a 2 Prank-Kid line here. So I'm going to use Rocksies to banish the other Rocksies. Now we can summon Fansies from deck. Actually, oh, because I drew, that's right. So, I actually am now going to pivot into a 2-card Prank-Kids line. That's why I wanted to show this game off, because this game is a good example of why it's important to be flexible when you're comboing. So again, we open with the 2 Rocksies there, and so when we're thinking 1 card, like 1 Prank-Kid line, because even though we open 2 Prank-Kids, they're 2 of the same Prank-Kid, and you have to have 2 different Prank-Kids to be able to go into that line specifically. So again, we lead with the Rocksies and get the draw as a result, and then we drew into the Prank-Kids place. Now that we've drawn that, and this is actually another reason why I kind of like having Prank-Kids place. Well, I guess we could have just drawn into a Prank-Kids card. That doesn't really necessarily mean it's like we could have drawn into any Prank-Kids monster at that point, is what I meant to say, because we already had the 2 Rocksies. So any Prank-Kids we would have drawn would have been a non-duplicate anyway. So I guess my point is a little moot. I was going to say Prank-Kids place ensures that we draw a different Prank-Kid, but like I said, we already drew both Rocksies, so we do. Anyway, so now we're able to go into a 2 Prank-Kid line because we're able to use the place to add a Dropsies. And we're still early enough in the combo that we're not committed to either line at this point. So, yeah, I'll just use the Doodle Doodle Doo to add Pandemonium instead of Pranks, although we also already have Pranks in our hand anyway, so that's actually pretty nuts to already have the Pranks. And the Fusion Destiny is not bad to have either. We're not going to be able to use it this turn on our first turn because our opening play consisted of Pandemonium, which means we can only summon Prank-Kids for the rest of the turn, but still nice to have the Fusion Destiny as a backup option for later. And we do actually end up utilizing it as a backup option later, if I recall correctly. Alright, using place to chain block the Prank-Kids, even though my opponent hasn't had another response at this point, so pretty sure they don't have it. And we'll go into Bow Wow Bark. Now we're going to be able to link those into the Rip, Roar, and Roaster. And then we can use the, of course, the Rocket Ride to get back our 2 Link 2 monsters. Yep, the Doodle Doodle Doo and the Bow Wow Bark. Doodle Doodle Doo will grab us back the Lampsies and the Pandemonium, and then next turn the Bow Wow Bark will grab us the Fansies and the Dropsies, so we can go into Battle Butler. And that's the good old, triple, quote-unquote triple board wipe, where we can board wipe with Rip, Roar, and Roaster and Battle Butler, and thanks to Meow Meow Moo, use one of them twice. But our opponents actually got the Psyframe Gear Gamma. They must have just topped it, obviously, because they didn't use it during that last turn at all, but they just topped it against the Bow Wow Bark, so it's one of the few times when draw phase Bow Wow Bark isn't enough to make sure that the card resolves. So then they started doing adventure stuff, so this definitely started looking like a bit of a yikes, although I talked about this actually. I talked about this in the last Prank-Kids video I recorded, and this is another reason I wanted to show this game, besides, being flexible with your turn 1 plays, to show that, because again, I've seen people say, and I kind of agree to an extent, like Rip, Roar, and Roaster isn't quite as useful as it normally is because we don't play in a super back row heavy format, but Fateful Adventure alone, I think, is enough reason to include Rip, Roar, and Roaster. So here, I'm able to utilize it with Meow Meow Moo to go into to be able to stop them from going into the adventure line, is what I meant to say. So yep, here they have to go into the Vermilion Dragon Mech. And that will destroy the Rip, Roar, and Roaster, but that is actually going to let us get back the Ash Blossom from the graveyard, so definitely not too bad there. I could have grabbed another Prank-Kid for potential combo line, but I've already got the Lampsies in hand. I've already got a Fusion Destiny for a backup play, so I definitely wanted to get a little bit more disruption in the form of Ash Blossom here. Plus, we just drew a Fansies anyway, so definitely glad we didn't add another Prank-Kid or something. Alright, so we'll lead with Fansies into Meow Meow Moo, utilizing Fansies' effect with the place to chain block. Opponent does have call by, which is going to let them get around the chain blocking though, so that's a little bit annoying, but we actually are able to do the DPE line, of course, because we have the Fusion Destiny in hand, but I'm going to do it a little bit of a different way to see if I can bait out, see if my opponent has a negate in hand here. I'm going to use Prank-Kids Pranks in order to make a token, and then use that token to go into Link Spider. I'm basically going into Vert Anaconda instead of activating the Fusion Destiny from my hand, just because I want to see if my opponent maybe has, I don't think they've Ashed this turn, have they? And I think they've had opportunities to, but I just want to see if they Ash or Valor or Imperm. They don't. It might have been a little bit risky given that I was at 3,800 life points. It was going to cost me 2,000 then, but like I touched on, I think earlier in this video, or was it the last video I recorded? Jesus, I don't even remember, but you know, you gotta view life points as a resource, so you can't be afraid to spend them like a resource either. Now, you do still have to be mindful here. I definitely have to be mindful of the fact that I'm leaving up a 500 attack Vert Anaconda while I only have 1,800 life points. So when I use DPE's effect on my opponent's turn, I'm definitely going to want to use it on the Vert Anaconda. And as soon as I activate a King Long here, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, I know I am potentially setting up the King Long to be able to search here, but I've got the Ash Blossom that I added with the Ripborn Roaster, so even if that ends up being the case, I'm not too fussed. They actually end up activating Kowloon instead. I'm just going to Ash that. And now they don't have a card in hand to use the King Long with, so that definitely takes care of that problem. They are still able to use the Water Enchantress, but without the Fateful Adventure, they can't get the Draco back or the Gryphon Rider, so that's not going to pose too much of a threat at all here. And yeah, they banish King Long and then realize like, oh, they have to discard afterwards, so that's not going to end up allowing them to set up any plays, and that's going to secure the game for us. So yeah, like I said, another nice back and forth game there where we get to utilize some kind of clever disruption. Again, disruption is kind of the name of the game with this deck. That's why I've often compared this deck to Tri-Brigade Zodiac in terms of playstyles, because we're not really using, like, I mean, yeah, of course we're playing Adventure, so we do have an Omni Negate, but we're not using really as many Omni Negates as a lot of other decks are. We're more utilizing disruption style effects to prevent our opponent from making plays. All right, we've only got 3 games this video because I actually thought I had 4 but only had 3, so, but they've been longer games, so it's been fine, I think. We've got one more game to take a look at. Let's go ahead and go straight into it. Okay, so for this last game, we're playing against a mirror match, and the opponent's actually playing some cards. So they're playing 43 cards, but 2 of the cards are going over 4. Actually, 2 cards I've kind of considered going up to 41 or maybe even 2-4, which are Thunder Dragon Fusion and Harpy's Feather Duster. And we're actually going to get to see our opponent make pretty good use of the Thunder Dragon Fusion in particular. So they'll lead with a Foolish Burial for the Water Enchantress, setting up the line. I've only got Imperm with this hand as a kind of response card, so looks like I'm going to have to be saving that for the Wandering Gryphon Rider during my turn in order to be able to make some plays there. It's also a little bit awkward to open with Foolish and Rite and Fateful Adventure, but we could potentially make use of opening all of these cards to bait out some responses from the opponent. I've kind of touched on this before, but with the Adventure line, if I open multiple pieces of it like this, I like to kind of do I kind of still like to play them in quote-unquote order to see if I can bait responses. Like, even though I don't need a Foolish to set up the Enchantress to banish to add a Rite of Aramesir, I definitely still like to do that. 1, to see if my opponent ashes the Foolish, would definitely be nice so that they don't ash a Prank-Kids Fansies later. And 2, it also gets the Rite of Aramesir out of the deck, which it might be like a potential dead draw later. So we're definitely going to end up doing that. And again, I generally speaking like to do that. Our opponent ends with, you know, a Gryphon Rider that's live, but that's definitely not too bad by itself. The Maxx on top of that is definitely going to be a little bit of a yikes, though. But we can just use the Imperm on the Gryphon Rider here, so I'm not, again, super concerned about that, except for the fact that then our opponent Crossout Designators, so I do at least get the face down out of the way, though. Again, just treating this for any form of disruption is kind of fine here, but I would have rather negated, like I said, the Gryphon Rider. So I'll Foolish the Water Enchantress here, activate Water Enchantress, just seeing if at any point my opponent's going to Gryphon Rider. Now I'm going to activate the Rite, and then my opponent's going to Gryphon Rider, which I have mixed feelings about this. I would have liked this to resolve. I was kind of hoping that they would have done it on the Gryphon or on the Fateful Adventure instead. I guess it doesn't really matter either way in that regard. Of course, they probably want to do it on the Rite because they don't know that I have Fateful Adventure in hand. But I'm also fine with this, though, because I can still just normal summon Fansies. As you can see, obviously I haven't used my normal summon yet. And we can just go into a Prank-Kids line that way and set up a Battle Butler. Oh, that's right, but I do still activate the Fateful Adventure here. 1, I want to use this effect to add and then send a Water Enchantress. Again, I've obviously used both Water Enchantress and Rite this turn, but I don't want the Gryphon Rider right now. I did think about getting the Gryphon Rider, maybe discarding one of the 2 Fansies in order to special that, but I'm still under Maxx. Definitely don't want to give them any unnecessary draws, and I feel like I would rather just like get the dead draws out of my deck, like this Water Enchantress. Like, I'm really not trying to top deck it next turn, so that's why I'm just going to add it and then send it. And then if I remember right, I just end up setting Fansies here, because I figure, like, well, even if my opponent uses the Fateful Adventure to get the Gryphon next turn, then they can, you know, they can't battle over this. They'll probably just bounce it, but, you know, last turn they didn't have much of a setup besides just the adventure cards anyway, so I think I'm totally fine with that. Now, interestingly enough, they did end up discarding the Thunder Dragon Fusion. I think, was it off of the Fateful Adventure? It must have been, right? I don't see how else they would have discarded it. Yeah, they discarded out the Fateful Adventure. And I don't often think about Thunder Dragon Fusion's second effect here. In Prank-Kids in particular, obviously it's a lot more relevant in the Thunder Dragon deck itself, but with particularly Prank-Kids, I've never used a second effect, mostly because you have to use it except during the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, but our opponent's actually going to make really good use of it here. You know, and I totally didn't even, this wasn't even on my radar because I don't think about this effect ever, but of course they're going to start with the Fateful Adventure to set up the Gryphon Rider just in case, you know, I have the response in hand, but, and of course because they also have the Draco back as well. But then, yeah, they're going to be able to banish Thunder Dragon Fusion to add their Fansies and then be able to go into plays. And, you know, of course, the Draco back can bounce my set. It's funny because I thought, like, oh, Fansies got 2,000 defense. It can block both the token and the Gryphon Rider. But then then of course, they set up the Draco back, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's a thing. So, it is what it is. But yeah, like I said, they're able to, I guess they had the Rocksies anyway, so it looks like they didn't even need to use the Thunder Dragon Fusion necessarily, but even if they didn't have a Prank Kid in hand, they still would have had the options, so that is definitely what counts here. Yeah, I want to kind of show this game because, you know, it's got cool Prank-Kids plays, even though I'm not necessarily the ones making them, and I do like to show off diversity in builds. I know I tend, if I can say my words right, I kind of tend to stick to the more like consistent build and don't tend to branch out too far from that, but I do still like the opportunity like this to show off what the deck can do, even if it's in like a mirror match situation like this. So yeah, here I'm basically just waiting to see if my opponent's going to be able to lethal me. At this point I'm like, well, maybe they can, maybe they can't. Well, and I know that there's a pretty decent chance they can because they've already got the adventure stuff up. Like after that point, I don't think it's too difficult to try to find 4,000 damage here, or I guess technically 3,500. But you know, even if you can spot the line, that doesn't always mean that your opponent can. So it's definitely worth it to, especially if you're laddering up like I am now. It's definitely worth it to wait it out and see if your opponent actually does find the lethal. But they do here. They are able to find that they can, you know, Pandemonium, fuse for the Battle Butler, and then when they have the place up, they can buff all their monsters, and that's going to give them more than enough attack points to attack me for game here. So GG's to my opponent. Was definitely some solid plays on their part. Good use of the Thunder Dragon Fusion, setting up during their first turn so that they could set up a Prank Kid, or so they can make sure they had a Prank Kid during their next turn. I'm guessing they didn't open with the Rocksies, they probably just topped it, but again, good play on my opponent's part to ensure that they had plays during their next turn. So, going to give a little golf clap, a kudos to you. So, all right, let's go ahead and go now to the outro. Alrighty, so that is going to do it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching, especially all the way to the very end like this. I definitely greatly appreciate that. As always, those of you who are commenting, as I said before at the beginning of the video, that means a whole lot to me, not just for like me personally or for like the video to have good interaction. No, I'm of course speaking again to that community aspect that I like to see kind of thrive here, and it is, I think, thriving so far. So that is super awesome. It's like I said, the pretty much main goal I have in mind with the channel. So thank you very much to all those who are contributing in that regard. And subscribing also, you know, means a lot, not only to me, but also as support for the channel, and we'll keep you up to date on when the videos drop, which does happen every single day. You do get daily Master Duel content out of me, but that's going to do it for today's video. Again, thanks again. This is Hexlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.